I agree, Sky Guardian. Let us crack open another section of the Vachanāmrut. This sacred scripture is a collection of about 300 short discourses from Swami Narayan. Here we are reading Gadhadā 1:22. Singing without remembering God is as good as not singing at all. And the digit 1 is the title of this section. Very exciting. At noon on Posh Sudhi the 4th, Samvat 1876, or the 20th of December 1819, Sriji Maharaj was sitting facing east on a large decorated cot on the veranda outside the east-facing rooms of Dada Khachar's Darbar in Gadhadā. He was dressed entirely in white clothes. A tassel of flowers had been inserted in his pug, and bunches of flowers had been placed upon both of his ears. He was also wearing a garland of Guldavadi flowers around his neck. At that time, while some Paramahansas, the highest kind of renunciants, were singing devotional songs, other Paramahansas as well as devotees from various places had gathered before him in an assembly. Also, a footnote to this section about the subtitle of the digit 1. The title refers to the importance of the digit 1. A long row of zeros has no value, but when a single 1 is placed before the zeros, the value of the composite figure is exponentially increased with each zero. I love me some good math and spirituality, and some mathematical spirituality, or spiritual mathematics just really gets my mojo on. Thereupon, Sriji Maharaj said, "Please listen, I wish to tell you something." Hearing this, the Paramahansas stopped singing and prepared themselves to listen. Sriji Maharaj then said, "If one does not remember God while singing to the accompaniment of Mrudang, Sarangi, Sarod, Tal, or other instruments, then that singing is as good as not having been sung at all. Besides, there are many people in this world who sing and play instruments without remembering God, but they do not attain peace of mind. Therefore, whichever activity one performs, whether it be singing devotional songs, reciting God's holy name, chanting the Narayan, Dunya, etc., one should only perform that activity while remembering the form of God. If a person specifically attempts to engage themselves in worship, they may be able to focus their vritti on God. However, completing those acts of worship, if they do not maintain their vritti on God while engaged in other activities, then their vritti will not become steadied on the form of God, even when they attempt to engage in worship again. Therefore, one should practice maintaining one's vritti on the form of God while walking, eating, drinking, in fact, during all activities. If one does this, one's vritti becomes steadied on God when one engages in worship as well. Moreover, when one's vritti begins to remain on God, it remains so even during other work. If one is complacent, though, One's vritti will not remain on God, even when one specifically attempts to engage oneself in worship. Therefore, a devotee of God should vigilantly practice maintaining their vritti on the form of God. Having said this, Sriji Maharaj requested, "Now, please sing devotional songs." And so we conclude Gadhadā 1:22. Singing without remembering God is as good as not singing at all. And the digit 1 before all the zeros. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Sky Guardian, for recommending that reading, giving us a reason to read that reading, I should say. In 31 planes of existence, you share that worship feels weird to you, like what God needs to be kissed up to. An excellent question, and perhaps I can explain with a short story. That is also something that I struggled with for most of my life, especially when it's forced. And we should know that worship is never forced. The reason we have the choice to do it at all is proof that it is not forced. But consider walking down the street and seeing a homeless person before you. God has prepared the situation for you so that you may part with a $20 bill. You may ask, why does God need $20? If He is God, He could manifest all the money in the world for Himself. So why does God, seated in the heart of this homeless person, need me to part with $20? The answer is, because it's not for God. Not at all, in fact. It's for ourselves, so that we may become more humble, that we may become more giving. God does not need us to worship Him. We need to worship God. Do you see the difference? The need is within ourselves, not in God. But that choice must happen voluntarily. It is not mandatory, because worship that is forced is not worship at all. True love is done with freedom of one's will, and therefore, when one discovers the meaning inherent in worship, then they do so for their own self-purification, not to uphold some kind of moral law or anything of that matter. And thank you, Ragnhildur, for your trio of roses. Jai Sita Ram. And Peach, you ask, if dimensions are just perspectives, then how do you shift to a different dimension? Dimensions are independent axes in which an object may vary. We say that this universe is three-dimensional because every spot in it requires 3 independent coordinates to specify. For example, on Earth, to describe the position of a mountain, we need 1 coordinate for longitude, 1 for latitude, and a 3rd for altitude. But our continents are always shifting by continental drift. Therefore, Einstein noted, we really need to add a fourth number. We need the time in which something exists also, not just the 3 axes of space. There is interplay between all of these dimensions. It is like going to a party. When you get an RSVP, you have the physical location, the address, but you also have the time that the party takes place, because that can also vary. There are many other physical things that may vary, and we could consider, like some particle physicists do, a whole array of other dimensions, not necessarily spatial or temporal ones like Einstein posited. And psychologically too, there are many dimensions of life. For example, there is a dimension of heat, ranging from hot to cold. There is a dimension of passion, ranging from love to hate. There is a dimension of happiness, ranging from joy to sorrow. These are all the dimensions within us. So far, we are predetermined in our exploration of them. Whenever X arises, we do Y. We are set in our ways, but we don't have to be. It is possible to explore these dimensions of mind, even in spite of our programming. When an angry situation arises, instead of going down the dimension of anger, retract from that and explore a patient dimension. Shifting your perspectives from the negative to the positive, you expand upward and outward. This is very easy said and very difficult to do. But in each situation that we have the opportunity, we should seek openness rather than being confined to any predetermined direction.